The Liberals have been campaigning on anti-American rhetoric and probably I don't really like to say this, but I'm going to freaking say it, man. Probably the gayest slogan we have ever seen in the history of politics. Elbows up. It doesn't even make any sense. It's actually dirty hockey playing. But Liberals have been clapping like brain dead seals. I want to use the R word, but I'm not going to. But if I'm thinking it, chances are you're thinking it too. To which now the end result is Canada's elbows up means Carney has stuck his butt up and Papa Trump has come behind. And well, we're going through a new trade negotiation. So good job, liberal idiots. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. We got some breaking news on top of breaking news, man. This is crazy. I hope you're ready for this video, so buckle up, and I hope you stick around for the full thing. But before we get into it, I do have a message from today's sponsor. Media in Canada is so disproportionately left-wing that they've just constantly been trying to prop them up, almost to the point of propaganda. This happened with Justin Trudeau, and it's happening with Mark Carney. This story is the best example, where Mark Carney literally said in the media about Danielle Smith that she should shut up and sit down about issues. Feel free to go to Ground News and follow along. But this story right here, you can see it's 71% covered by the left, 21% covered by the right. The left media is saying that Alberta Premier suggests that Mark Carney has issues with strong conservative women, when the more factual coverage of this is by the right, by Epoch Times, where they said Alberta Premier responds to Carney's jabs. And this has just been ongoing here in Canada. It's a huge problem where the media is constantly trying to cover things up for our left-wing politicians. There's also an awesome blind spot feed which shows stories that are disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. I personally think that everybody should be consuming the news through sources like Ground News. If you go to ground.news/sun, you'll find yourself getting 40% off the Vantage plan today, which is unlimited access, and that's the exact same plan that I use in order to get all of my news coverage. Thank you, Ground News, for sponsoring today's video. So a couple of things to take a look at in this video. One, Alberta's separating for realsies, and not to be a doomer, but there's a bit of doomer news. More on that later. But we're going to start off with the trade war and the tariffs. So earlier today, President Trump said, China, 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 getting 80, 100, 700, 10,000% tariffs, 180 some percent tariffs, I believe is where they landed on. He said 90-day pause for all countries except China. And then there was a 10% tariff baseline. It's like, is Canada part of that? Is Mexico part of that? What's going on? Well, it's now been reported by the Globe and Mail through a freaking weird ass payroll or pay blockade. Canada will not be subject to the new 10% tariffs, says the ambassador to the U.S. Now, CTV had this to report on.
From Sault Ste. Marie on the campaign trail with the Conservatives, the CTV's Judy Trin. Okay, Judy, time to take a breath as we absorb the actions of the U.S. president on tariffs. How did we get here?
Well, you know, when we heard that there was the possibility that Canada would be subjected to 10% reciprocal tariffs, we put out feelers asking for reaction from all the leaders on the campaign. However, as Vashi was saying, just about a half hour, 45 minutes ago, we got clarification that there will be no reciprocal tariffs of 10% for Canada and Mexico, and that the Trade Secretary, Scott Bessent, had misspoke. Take a listen to where the confusion started. Take a listen.
Mexico and China, are they part of this 10% universal?
Well, China, no, China.
Mexico and Canada, are they part of the 10%?
Yes.
Okay.
So you heard it. It was pretty clear. He said that Canada and Mexico would be impacted, but of course that is not the case.
Correct.
But that does not change anxiety in a city like Sault Ste. Marie. Behind me, Sandy, you see the Algoma steel plant, the biggest employer in this city of 76,000 people. This city is already impacted by 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. Canada has put out counter tariffs on that. Canada has also put out counter tariffs on U.S. autos after the Americans put auto tariffs on Canada. So this is what we're dealing with, and the confusion is not putting anyone at ease.
Okay, so no tariffs. What does this mean? Well, Canada's motto, Mark Carney's motto, the Liberals' motto has been, we're going to stick it to America. Canada is going to put our elbows up and our face down and our butts up. And that did not last very long. So according to President Trump, you have 75 different countries or more have been calling and begging America, please, please, let's renegotiate. To which Trump said, buy the dip. The stock market's going up, and today it shot up like 8, 9, 10%. $4 or $5 trillion has been added into the entire United States market. It's, the third biggest single day trading in American history. Insane news, and something that's going to be swept under the rug, because it would be a shame if this were to go viral. The Liberals, Mark Carney has bowed down to Trump. Bow down to Trump. You can't make this up. So you have this being posted by Watch Guru. Just in, Canada agrees to negotiate new trade deal with the United States. Canada is doing what it's told. To which I replied, ha 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 ha, elbows up. So there you go. Canada, or specifically Mark Carney, is caving into the demands, which we all knew was going to happen. But this whole, it's over with America, and Mark Carney's going, we're never going to have the same relationship again, and blah, blah, blah. Stop puffing up your chest to America. This is not be... As much as CTV Vancouver wants to slander me and attack me as an American apologist, which I am not, objectively speaking, we don't stand a chance going into a trade war, economic war, or any war of that matter with America ever at all in the history of foreverness. So why are we trying to fight them so much? Well, it's an election campaign. Everybody's trying to get more votes. And apparently, libtards think that it's super popular to go anti-America until elbows up, face down, and butt up happens and a new trade deal is being negotiated. Now, this is going to be good, no matter how you look at it. Tariffs are going to come down. Elbows are going to come down, and we're finally going to go back to some form of normalcy. But I was under the impression, if I'm being fully honest, I was 100% under the impression that Canada was going to be the second last country to hold off. I didn't realize Canada was going to cave this fast, because our politicians, our liberal idiot politicians, are so stubborn that I thought it was going to be Canada second last and China last. But no, here we go. So there's the breaking news. We're going to go back to a form of normalcy, and we can stop hating Americans. We can stop hating America. We can stop booing the anthem, and we can go back to being best friends under a new trade deal. Now we're going to take a look at what's going on with Alberta. I understand that this is going to be a little bit of a doom and gloom situation. Alberta is actually going to go through the process of a referendum and separate, and it's going to happen this year. But there's more to it, and I'm about to explain it. So let's get into it. So there's been a lot of talks of Alberta going through the referendum process. Danielle Smith has literally done press conferences talking about this. Now, what does that look like? Well, you need 600,000 people to sign a petition in Alberta, a government regulated petition, just like the ones that I've done pretty much through House of Canada, right? Where we stop muting the mic and stuff like that. Okay. So a regular government Alberta petition. You have to have an address, a name, all that stuff. It has to check out. You need 600,000 signatures for the referendum to be triggered, for it to be a green-lit process. Then what happens is it comes to a provincial vote. Now, we don't yet know, at least it's not really public information, what that would look like, because I don't really think this has even happened in Alberta yet. But chances are there's going to be a requirement process when it goes to vote. But the results that you need for it to be favorable is 50% plus one. So the Alberta population of voting, you need more, just over 50% of the votes to say, yes, we want to separate. And that brings us to right now. That's just kind of all been festering in the background until right now, until today, where it's confirmed by the mainstream media that there's enough people to make this happen. And if the mainstream media is saying that that's possible, chances are this is really going to go through. So we're going to take a look at this story right now. Now, Quebec has done this before. You need an ID that you've been living in Alberta. And so that's the process. I thought maybe there'd be like 12 months proof of residency, but apparently you just need an ID that you're living in Alberta. So chances are, if this actually goes into play, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be probably immigrating to Alberta who are in support of burnt toast smell. What's going on? I'm having a stroke. Of the referendum process that want Alberta to separate and be its own entity. So that brings us again to right now. What's going on? Let's take a look at the numbers. So right here on CBC, this is what they are reporting. 1 in 4 Albertans would vote to separate in a referendum, the Angus poll suggests. Experts say many who would support Alberta's separatism are not really serious about it, yet 1 in 4 are. Absolutely they are. A new Angus Reid Institute poll shows that a referendum were held tomorrow, 1 in 4 Albertans would vote to leave. Now, chances are there's actually going to be more than that, because what we've been seeing with even the federal polls in this election is they are massively underrepresenting the amount of people that are in support of this. So in actuality, it's 1 in 3 people that are wanting to leave. Absolutely freaking insane. And 1 in 4 people, by the way, in Alberta means 1.1 million Albertans. So even though the government-funded media right now is saying, well, not a lot of people are serious about it, that's still 1.1 million people, which is enough, easily enough, double the amount of people that you need to trigger the referendum to happen. And they're going to separate. They are absolutely going to separate. For Albertans like Diane, it's not a far-fetched idea. She said that the country is facing high-stakes federal election after nearly a decade of Liberal rule. Diane spoke to CBC News outside of a Pierre Poilievre rally on Monday. She said in the upcoming election, a Conservative win is critical for national unity. If the Liberals get in, Alberta will separate, guaranteed. Now, this next piece, I'm just going to speak to the people right now that are watching this. This next piece I'm about to say is something that I haven't been talking about, because I don't want to demoralize people. I want people excited to go out and vote. And I've been withholding making a dedicated video about this, but I'm going to include this little piece right now for those that are watching. Let's say in a perfect scenario, Pierre Poilievre wins a majority government, 230 seats, all right? Insane. The polls were wrong all along. That's awesome. Chances are you watching this right now are going, yeah, frick yeah, man, that's great. I'm all aboard that. Like, woohoo, 2 thumbs up. Not elbows up, but 2 thumbs up. So what does that look like moving forward? Well, here's the piece that I haven't talked about it. Now, I don't want this to come across as disingenuous because I haven't been talking about it. But when it comes to the Senate, there's 105 senators in Canada. And Justin Trudeau's final act as prime minister before he left was mass appointing, lifetime appointments to the Senate. So out of 105 senators, do you know how many are Liberals? We're going to do a little Dora the Explorer. You're right. 100 Liberal senators in the Canadian Senate. 5 Conservative senators. Now, some of those Liberal senators are guised under, they aren't left, they're not right, they're like independent. Give me a break. No, they're not. They're absolutely not. They're all from Liberal ridings, and they've been appointed by Justin Trudeau. So even in a perfect world, with the majority government under Pierre, and this is the demoralizing piece. This is why I haven't made a dedicated video about it, because I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. With a majority government, 1,000 seats. It's entirely Conservatives. There's no Liberals in there. Just imagine that. Okay, wow, that's like huge. They still likely won't be able to do anything through the Senate. The only thing they'll be able to push through the Senate is using emergency powers. And they can't use emergency powers for everything. Can they use emergency powers to complete a pipeline in an economic trade war? Possibly. But also, the Liberals have been so anti-pipeline. Quebec has been so anti-pipeline. And our government has been so radically climate change, induced that even if Canada were to use emergency powers and with a crazy super conservative majority build a pipeline using emergency powers and go over the Senate and just do it, it would very likely be sabotaged in Quebec because the politicians there are against it, and across Canada because our government has been so radicalized that they've built up this super radical left-wing mob that's all about climate change. Now, down that scenario, since we're doing all these what ifs, then, of course, Pierre Poilievre and the conservative insane majority in this hypothetical scenario could say, well, we're going to basically crack down on crime like we've never seen. And if you sabotage anything that has economic impacts, you're like, go to jail for life or a public hanging or something to really put fear into people. But chances are it's still going to be sabotage. So the Senate's going to be blocking our country forever. Right, lifetime appointments until they're, I was looking at this morning, until they're 75 years old. And a lot of these senators that Trudeau appointed as his last act, as a big F you to Canada, they were younger. They were younger, not in their 30s, but in their 40s and stuff like that. So, yeah. When you're thinking of the future of Canada, it's looking pretty dark. And obviously, you're probably thinking, well, what's the point now of anything? Right? What's the point of anything right now in Canada? So I don't want to be all doom and gloom. That's not me saying don't go out and vote. I want everyone to go vote. Go vote for whoever it is that you want. Like that guy right there. All right. Go vote. Be pro-Pierre, be pro-conservative. We can change this country. We can actually do very good if we all get out and vote and there is, a conservative win. But just keep in mind that the Senate is going to block everything. And so even with Pierre bringing it full circle back to this referendum, even with Pierre winning a conservative government or a majority government, chances are once people catch on to all of this and once they start to try to push things through and they figure out that the Senate isn't doing anything, Alberta's going to separate. And so if you want to be part of that separation, then I would highly suggest that you start to look into the process of moving to Alberta, because this is going to be the biggest movement that we've ever seen. Quebec tried to separate and they were not successful. It's very unfortunate because now if it were a vote to boot Quebec off the island, they would absolutely get the boot. This time Alberta has a chance to do what's best for the province of Alberta, and whether that's becoming a part of America or being its own country, whatever it is, this is it. This is the final chance Alberta's going to get to do this. There's never going to be this much anti-liberal sentiment and anti-whatever's going on sentiment in this country again. We're at peak freaking retardation right now. So if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen now. So let's take a look now at this little video here.
I'm Chris Semenuk. I will be voting for Conservative this election. Main reason why is trying to get entrepreneurs back up and running after the last 10 years. Get our Western energy moving and try and get some economic stability going here.
My name is Brian Richards. I will be voting Conservative for this election, and mostly for the economy and for Alberta to get a voice at the table.
My name's Jeff Rowe. I'm from Red Deer, Alberta. I will be voting Conservative in this election. I believe that the Conservative Party will bring together Canada, unite us on the front, and bring economic prosperity and unleash our resources and get us onto the global scale.
Yeah, I hope so, but with the Senate the way it is, it's very, very tricky. A lot of moving parts. And if the referendum passes, which it seems like it will, because there's over 1 million people, according to even, fraudulent media polling, there's over 1 million, 1.2, 1.3 million Albertans that are fired up and ready to go. If the referendum passes, there's already legislation in place in Alberta to put it on the ballot in the next municipal elections in October. So if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen this year. And if you want to be a part of the greatest shift in Canadian history of Alberta, literally doing what's best for millions of people within Alberta, then you might want to consider like buying a little piece of land there so you can say you're a part of it or something, or changing your address there, because it's gonna happen regardless. Even if Pierre wins a majority government, I still foresee Alberta going through this process. So there you go, folks. Premier Danielle Smith was asked about Manning's column on Monday in a news conference. She said Canada hasn't worked for Alberta in a decade because of federal liberal policies. I have to acknowledge that there's a lot of unhappiness on part of Albertans and the way we've been treated. Last Monday, she released a list of demands for the next prime minister to address in the first 6 months of office that she said are required to avoid national unity crisis. I want to be able to see what happens after the next election, Smith said on Monday, and then I'll gauge where Albertans are out on that point. And so it's going to happen. I mean, people are saying it's not going to happen. It absolutely will. And if it ever will be successful, it's a time like right now. And so regardless of the election, federal election, outcome, just keep that in mind, that if Alberta is ever to separate, because the way Canada has been and all of the momentum, all the devastation that Trudeau and the Liberals have caused to Alberta specifically, and the leech on not only Canada, but specifically the being leech on Alberta that Quebec has been, we're at, like I said, peak. I don't like to use this word too much, but peak retardation right now. And so if it's going to happen, it's going to be this year. So be prepared, folks, and keep that in mind. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts and comments down below about the new trade war and about America. Whoopsie, the 51st state, about Alberta going through the referendum process and what you foresee with that moving forward. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys in another video, and thank you, Grand News, once again for sponsoring today's video.